Hallo und willkommen. Ich bin Meister Lenz and you're watching Get Germanized, the 5 questions people always ask about Germany.
All on board. What should I do?
Ich weiß.
Get Germanized.
So today we're gonna go through 5 common questions that apparently everyone always asks about Germany and Germans in specific. So let's find out if that is true. I haven't looked through all of them yet, but I'm gonna try to answer them as best as I can. And yeah, let's see how I do, and maybe you have a better answer. If you think, well, that's not 100% accurate, maybe you have an answer in the comments below. First up, is it true that Germans are always very rude? I have heard this stereotype so many times, and I really don't know where that's coming from. I guess because Germans can seem very closed off and sometimes a little bit distant, but that doesn't mean that, I don't know, that it's all a matter of perspective. I understand. Like for the British, oh, this road is bad. For the British, of course, it would seem rude if a German is very blunt and just says what he thinks. Because I have a friend from London, multiple ones, but my friend Hannah, actually, she was surprised by how blunt I always was. I guess that can be perceived as quite rude if you come from a culture that always kind of tiptoes around the matter, or I mean tries to not hurt someone's feelings and then tries to soften the blow. We Germans definitely don't do that, try to soften the blow. If something is annoying us, if something is worth mentioning, we'll sure as hell gonna mention it. So don't expect any special treatment from us Germans. We're gonna tell you when you're acting stupid and when you're annoying or whatever. It's just ingrained in our culture. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, there's differences between Germans, obviously. Some will be less harsh, some will be more harsh. But to us, that's not rude. To us, it's rude to talk behind someone's back or to lie to someone's face. You know, we appreciate the honesty that comes with being blunt, because why not just tell someone if you have an issue so that the issue can be resolved. There we go. Because I guess that also has to do with the German need of efficiency, or the want for efficiency. We like things that are efficient, so maybe that's that. Generally, I would say that Germans try to be polite though. Try to be trustworthy, try to be not asking any very discreet questions. Like I wouldn't, if I don't know someone, ask, oh, how much do you earn? Or something like that. In Germany, actually talking about money like that is very impolite, unless you're super close with someone. I know that in the US it's super normal to go about and ask someone, hey, so how much do you earn? So, hey, I make more than you, hey, or something like that. You should get another job. That would be so rude in Germany. No way that's gonna happen. So that might be a culture shock for my friends from the US. Not sure. But in Germany, it's definitely a no-go. But generally, I would say the standards of what is rude and what isn't is just a bit different in Germany, I believe. Or for some things, at least. Maybe that's where that comes from. And again, I talked about this before. When I walk around, I have this resting bitch face on sometimes, and I don't mean anything by it. I'm just concerned with my own thoughts, with my own stuff. But as soon as someone approaches me, I noticed this again. I was at the hospital today, right? And as soon as I interact with people, I'm really bubbly and friendly. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Not like that, but you know what I mean. Similar, I try to be bubbly and friendly sometimes, I mean, most of the time on camera. I don't always succeed, but I try my best, and that's how I interact with people in real life as well. But I guess when I'm on my own, I just go into energy conserving mode. I'm like, just sit down and don't talk to anyone. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Next up, how can you even learn German? It's so hard and sounds so ugly. I tend to disagree with that statement. German, I mean, is difficult to learn, but any language is difficult to learn if you come from a set of completely different linguistic standards, I would say. Like if your language just has different sounds than German, so your mouth, your vocal system isn't used to producing them, of course that new language will seem difficult and maybe even impossible at first to learn. But that's not the case. You can get used to anything. Anything will come to you after a while through practice, just like with anything in life, really. If you play the guitar for 10 years, you're going to be good at the guitar. If you learn German for 10 years, you're going to be good at German. The question is if you have the drive to get there, if you have the passion to get there. Because, I mean, I would like to learn the guitar, and I do own two, like an acoustic guitar and an electric guitar, but I never had the passion to really sit down hours and hours on end every day or every week and learn it. It wasn't important enough to me. I have friends who are really good at the guitar, but they sat down and they sometimes didn't do much else. And every time they visited me, they wanted to play on my guitar and even practice then. And I was like, okay, that's not for me, sadly, because I would love to play an instrument, but it's not important enough to me to learn it. Not really. So as long as you have that drive to learn a new language, like I had that with English because it covered so many of other things that were interesting to me, like movies I wanted to know the story of, or anime, or like shows, or whatever it was. So I had a reason for learning it. And as long as you have that reason, I don't think German is difficult to learn at all. Maybe start with a set of vocabularies in that new language that interests you the most. For example, I don't know, if you like aviation, learn about that. If you like space stuff, learn that. If you like sci-fi terms, try to find those in German. Anything that interests you, just in German. And I've suggested this many times before, but I know there's new viewers every now and then as well on my channel, so I thought I'd include it anyway. And as for German sounding ugly, I don't agree. I mean, I made these jokes sometimes that German can sound a bit scary and harsh, but I just played around with stereotypes because, truth be told, I don't believe that, because I know what German sounds like in normal speech when someone doesn't overpronunciate every it's just not like that at all. It's hallo, wie geht es Ihnen? Ich möchte die Kühe melken. Well, I'm not sure if I want to do that, but it can sound quite hard, soft. Haha, almost tricked my brain here, or got tricked by my brain. Ein freudscher Versprecher. Well, anyway, I don't believe that German sounds harsh. To some maybe, but to me, Arabic sounds really harsh, for example. Or, I don't know, I can't think of many other different languages at the moment that sound so harsh to me, like Arabic. But maybe that's what German sounds like to other people, and so I understand. But I'm pretty sure you can speak Arabic very softly as well if you want to. It's all a matter of pronunciation and the will to do that. Next up, is Germany really that expensive? And I have to say, I would love to say no here, but it's not necessarily that easy. In some areas it's just going to be really expensive. For example, the south of Germany is sometimes a bit more expensive, like Munich, for example. But that all depends on what your standard of cheap is. How much you earn, what social class you're from, and stuff like that, right? Because what's cheap to me might not be cheap to someone else, or what's expensive to me might be cheap to any other person that has money, or a lot of money, whatever. So yeah, it really all depends. I would say generally Germany is on the more expensive side in Europe, in comparison to the Czech Republic or Hungary or countries like that, or even I guess to the US sometimes, because I hear that that sometimes paying €1.43, that's how much I paid for a liter of gas today, is quite expensive to people from the US. But that might have to do with the distances that are completely different in the US. compared to Germany, because in Germany the distances you have to travel are far smaller. I mean, Texas alone, the state of Texas, is the size of Germany, right, or similar. So of course they must have cheaper gas prices there. Otherwise, how will they get around? Because I know that the infrastructure with trains or subways in some cities is just not there. So if you didn't have cheap gas, people would just stay at home and wouldn't be able to go anywhere. So I get it. So you can argue that Germany is more expensive. It really depends. I've made videos in which I talked about German taxes, because the German taxes are quite expensive as well. I'm going to try to find that and link it for you in the video description. For example, there's a church tax that you have to pay, and the Einkommensteuer, the income taxes, can be quite high, or taxes just in general are much higher than in other countries. It might have to do with Germany being a welfare state, where we have a welfare system implemented, and also insurances, like health insurance is mandatory, so you have to pay that every month as well. That is expensive to some. So I guess on first glance, as a tourist, Germany might not be super expensive, but once you live here, it could be that you think, wow, no, I'm not going to live here, it's too much money that I have to pay. But what do you think? What are your experiences with, well, Germany being expensive or being cheap? And why do you say that? Maybe tell me what your job is and what social class you come from, like middle class, lower class, middle, upper class, whatever it is. Would just be interesting to me to see and hear different perspectives on this. Next up, do Germans really drink beer all the time? Are they alcoholics? Well, that largely depends on your standpoint on these things, because I mean, some Germans drink beer, or at least one beer every day in the evening after work. I don't do that, because technically that would make you an alcoholic. I've heard that even technically you would be an alcoholic if you drink alcohol regularly, so every week, every weekend. And many Germans do this, right? I mean, I try to pipe down a little bit the alcohol consumption at the moment, because I don't feel as healthy when I consume alcohol on a regular basis, and I don't feel super healthy eating bad foods and stuff like that. Obviously, it doesn't all make sense. So I'm trying to eat a bit more healthy and work out more, and you know, not drink as much alcohol. But generally speaking, Germans do drink a lot of beer, do drink a lot of alcohol, and that is definitely a problem for some. But also, what I'm thinking is, because back in medieval days, people drank beer instead of water sometimes, because it was healthier, right? Because it was less prone to bacterial infection, the beer, because of the alcohol. It's low-grade alcohol. And so maybe people developed a sort of tolerance to these things, to a degree at least, in comparison to other countries, because I mean, we're just used to it, and it's part of our culture, always has been, and people drink it a lot and don't think anything of it. I mean, we can drink alcohol in most public places, and even in some public transport, not in all anymore. Some train companies forbid it now, because I don't know, maybe they made bad experiences with just drunkards everywhere and vomit and stuff like that. But generally speaking, it is still a big part of life here and of the daily scenery, I would say. You can just see it everywhere. People drinking a beer, often of course homeless people or just unemployed people, sometimes sitting around and having a beer in the morning. It's sad. But that happens, and I guess that happens in other countries as well. Maybe not as much in the US, because you're not allowed to drink alcohol publicly there, but definitely in some places, right? And so yeah, Germans drink a lot of alcohol, but we don't drink alcohol all the time. Not even alcoholics would drink alcohol all the time. How is that possible? Like, you need to drink some water and some other things. I mean, if you really were only to drink beer, maybe it exists, but that would be very rare, and it's not common at all in Germany. Some people even don't like the taste of beer. It's really depending on who you ask and on what kind of person you are. So you can't generalize like that. I mean, you can try, I guess, but I wouldn't recommend it. So in conclusion, I would say no, Germans do not drink beer all the time. We do drink a lot of beer. I mean, just look at the Oktoberfest. It's just a crazy beer rampage, but not all the time, no. Next up, is it hard to get a job in Germany? That also greatly depends on your qualifications, what sector of work you want to dive into. Also, just what your expectations are. If you just want a job as a cleaning personnel person, whatever, then yeah, that's probably easier. You don't even need to speak German most likely. But if you don't speak German and not qualified, then chances might be that you will have a really hard time to find a job here. There are even programs, I think, in Germany that, there's a visa, a job-seeking visa, that you can stay here on and look for a job. But not everyone will be qualified for this. There are certain requirements that you need to fulfill for such a visa. I think people with good qualifications are more likely to get one because they're also more likely to find a job here. And certain sectors like engineering or healthcare, for example. Germany is very short on healthcare personnel, like good doctors, nurses and stuff like that. But keep in mind that nurses get paid very little in Germany. I mean, in comparison to their workload, maybe that's the case in other countries as well. I feel like they should definitely raise their wages. Not necessarily for doctors, maybe, I don't know actually how well they are paid or not paid. Maybe for doctors too, but definitely for nurses and like geriatric nurses and stuff like that, right? For elderly people, because it's such a hard job. My dad nurses his uncle at home as well, right? So he's in a wheelchair, always has been, and my dad started taking care of him after my grandpa couldn't anymore, after my grandpa died, definitely. And I mean, I help out, right? I even went to a nursing school, a 1-year nursing school, for that purpose, so that if I had ever to really care for my uncle, then I would be able to, right? And so I just help out every now and then, bring him to bed or give him medicine, mostly medicine, or pick him up from work because he goes to a center where disabled people in a wheelchair go and kind of work. It's more like therapy, where they go and, you know, they take care of them, they talk to them, they play games with them and stuff like that. And yeah, so I know how hard it can be, like the pressure on your body, or the strain on your body alone is super difficult to bear sometimes, because if you have to lift someone out of bed every single day, multiple times, multiple patients, it's just, damn, that's a lot of hard work, and that will ruin your back at some point as well if you're not careful. So I would suggest, I mean, that's off topic, but work out if you're in such jobs, and strengthen your body and muscles to not, you know, injure yourself while working. Anyway, it's a really difficult job. I really have the highest respect for people who do this as a living, and Germany needs more of you. Germany needs a lot of healthcare personnel, and those kind of jobs, like I said, will have it easier to settle down here in Germany, to find a job. Oh, that's a pretty house there on the left, isn't it? Other than that, there are language courses that you can take here in Germany that will make it easier for you to actually find a job. I think I made videos about that. For example, you can go to like a community college kind of thing, a Volkshochschule, where you take courses in the evenings or afternoons and learn German. That exists, and that might be something you could check out if that's for you or not, and that will maybe help you to be more qualified for a job here in Germany. But yeah, that's it with the 5 questions that people always ask about Germans in Germany. Maybe you have some other questions that you think are more commonly asked. If you do, let me know in the comments below, and I'm glad to answer them if I can in another video. Watch another video actually, because I made many of these driving around videos. It should appear around my face at some point here. And apart from that, thank you very much for watching. don't forget to get Germanized. Goodbye and auf Wiedersehen.